This is the Kitchen Sink WP podcast, episode 526.
I program my own computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. We have the technology.
Why, hello everybody, this is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events. We have no WordCamps, no events that I know of right now next week. That's kind of a bummer, but it's a good time to take a little bit of break, reflect, watch some old camps and talks online. WordPress.tv would be a good use of time there. Moving on, segment one in the news. Two things to talk about here, both related. I meant to mention that WordPress 6.5 release candidate 2 was released 2 weeks back. Totally forgot last week. And release candidate 3 was just last week. So because that is the second piece of news, that WordPress 6.5 is set to be released on March 26th, which is the day after this episode drops. So be prepared for that. Nothing right now has changed on the calendar, but that is something to keep in mind. So make sure you have backups before you do any major updates, of course. And I believe I'm going to there's a lot coming out in 6.5, which I'm interested in seeing and hearing about. So I'm going to do another deeper dive on that, and I might make that a podcast episode. I probably will, but I might make a video as well. Don't know yet. If you're interested in that, let me know. Be interested to see the response on that. All right, moving on. Is that in the news? That's it in the news. Moving on, segment 2. This week, I have an interview. I interviewed my friend Marcus Burnette. He's a great guy. And we had a great 30-minute chat or so. And listen to that. And we'll come back after that with the tip and tool of the week and wrap things up. All right, here he is. Today, I'm joined by Marcus Burnette. Marcus Burnette is a web design and development whiz who recently added, quote, field marketer, end quote, to his impressive list of skills. With over 13 years of experience in the industry, he's honed his craft and built a reputation for delivering exceptional results. He's a husband, a girl dad, works at GoDaddy, has a slew of side projects, more on that in a bit. He's the co-host of Do the Woo with Katie Keith about once a month. And with that, welcome to the podcast, Marcus.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Adam.
Of course. So, as people may know from listening to the podcast for a while, like yourself, I always start interviews with how I might know the guest. In this case, we know each other via, I don't know. Honestly, I was thinking about it. I think probably just online, and then we met in person probably at a WordCamp.
Yeah, some common friends, I think,
Yeah.
and mostly online back and forth. We'd met at WordCamp US 2022 a couple of years ago, I believe. Very briefly, though.
Yeah.
Got a chance to finally meet in person, say hey to each other, and then, got busy because that's how those things go.
And I hear your name all the time, obviously, from the GoDaddy side of things with, from Adam Warner and from Courtney, who's both of those have, because Adam, I don't know if Adam's been on, Courtney's been on the podcast. Adam may not have been. I should get him on too as well one of these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was thinking, I go, how do I know Marcus? But it's usually just the circle of the WordPress community and space. So,
Yep. And I know you from listening to this podcast and others that you've done probably over the last, I want to say 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So you're a familiar voice in my ears.
yeah. I mean, like we said before we hit record, I have been recognized in random spaces just based on voice, which is always surreal. And this podcast is 10 years old now. The Get Options podcast, we had a good run, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I think, with Kyle Maurer and myself. And then he got busy and all these kids that he has, so it's crazy. So, yeah. So, all right. So with that being said, for those who don't know you, tell us how you got here. How did you end up in WordPress?
Yeah. So I started using WordPress somewhat long before I did anything with the WordPress community. I worked at an agency in Orlando, Florida, which is where I'm based. I worked there for about 10 years. We started with a different content management system and then didn't really like the way that things were going there and decided to kind of see what the landscape held for us at that time. This is 2015 or 16, somewhere in there.
Okay. What was the CMS?
It was Drupal, and we liked Drupal, and then they decided to go heavy enterprise and kind of change completely the way that they were building the platform. And it was it was a steep learning curve to begin with, and they made it steeper, and we kind of just didn't like the way that was going for our small teams. So we wanted to stick with something simpler.
Right.
We had looked at WordPress when we originally wanted to go with Drupal, or when we originally went with Drupal. We looked at WordPress, and at that point, it was just a blogging platform, so to speak. And we needed something a little bit more. So when we revisited in 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, it had definitely grown with custom post types and custom fields, and all of that being much easier to do through plugins than previously, where you had to kind of hand code everything.
Yeah.
Made it a better option for us at that point. And so, and seeing that there was a large community behind it, we figured if we ran into anything, we would have the community to help us.
Right.
That being said, I didn't jump fully into the community. I jumped fully into WordPress and just started building stuff. We're an agency doing business for small and medium-sized companies in town. Just started building websites and stuff. And so worked there doing that for a number of years more after that, and then really didn't start diving into the community until end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
Wow.
Which was actually when I left the agency, and so jumped into the community to see what that was all about and see where there were some opportunities perhaps for me to continue my WordPress career. So that led me to being hired at SkyVerge. For those that aren't aware of SkyVerge, SkyVerge still is to some degree a company that now resides within GoDaddy, but is developing 60 plus plugins for WooCommerce. And so that was really how I bolstered my WooCommerce expertise as well, and got hired at SkyVerge. Funny story that we can chat about later was kind of a connection with Kyle, one of your co-hosts for one of your podcasts, Kyle Maurer. I interviewed with him at Sandhills, and that didn't work out, but his recommendation to SkyVerge is mostly how I got hired at SkyVerge, was through his recommendation. So,
and I'm thinking, real quick, remind me, didn't SkyVerge have a product to do like, what's it called? Abandoned cart. I think wasn't it them? It was like there's a guy named Alex that used to work at a company. I think it was SkyVerge that had an abandoned cart plugin or a service that was pretty cool. But I think it was SkyVerge. Anyway, it's hard to remember. It's been so long.
Yeah, there's definitely some cart abandonment stuff there. A lot of the plugins are payment gateway plugins, but also some of the larger ones like WooCommerce memberships people are probably familiar with, and local pickup stuff, which became popular right at the beginning of COVID there in 2020. So
Jilt, it was called Jilt.
Jilt, yeah. It's a SkyVerge subproduct that doesn't exist now, but was a cart abandonment email conversion system that worked really well with WooCommerce memberships, obviously, because it's also a SkyVerge plugin. And I actually have some Jilt coffee beans or something on this
I had to look
shelf
it up real
behind me.
Yeah, I think I was at WordCamp like Phoenix and I heard about it. I think they at one point maybe sponsored the podcast, or I did a review on it, something like that. I just recall that. It's been a while. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I almost forgot about that. It has been a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyways, to kind of skip closer to the end, SkyVerge got acquired by GoDaddy. There was some room on the on the field marketing side of things within GoDaddy under Adam Warner's team, and that was right around the time that GoDaddy was focusing on launching our managed WooCommerce product, and so I took my WooCommerce expertise to the field marketing team so that we could have some more WooCommerce experience at events and stuff, and that's how I ended up on the field marketing team.
Very cool. So based on that, that's a great segue. I mean, and not that this is any way sponsored or even known by GoDaddy. I'm just curious. I mean, I have a lot of friends who work there. I've had a history of sharing certain stories. One of the old VPs of GoDaddy back when I was in Los Angeles asked me questions about my experience with it. This was a long time ago, and it wasn't good back then. There was a lot of bad, obviously, a lot of issues. It literally used to take 25 minutes to spin up a database back in, this is about 15 years ago. It was just because there was so much demand on resources that it was slow. It was cheap. It was 99 cents for a domain, but then to get the site up and running, it was like 30 minutes later, Yeah. But that said, so my question then is,
it's definitely come a long way from there.
oh, of course, and everybody has along the way, sure. But so I'm curious, what does your day-to-day look like now in that space of at GoDaddy?
Yeah, so a lot of my responsibilities here on the field marketing team are really just kind of being the voice of GoDaddy to the community and the voice of the community to GoDaddy, kind of that go between, right? So we're constantly making our products, our support, all of that stuff better, but nobody knows about it until we tell them. So it's my job to go to events and be in the community online and share with the community what we're up to. And then likewise, the community has their feedback for both WordPress and hosting and GoDaddy. And so it's partially my job to kind of watch that and bring that information back to GoDaddy to say, hey, here's what's important to people. Here's what people want to see with WordPress. Here's what people are telling us that we could do better with our products, our support, our services. And so it's really kind of closing that feedback loop a little bit between the community and the folks inside of GoDaddy.
So you're almost the product evangelist as well. I mean, that's what you're,
Yeah.
I mean, I did that kind of work, if people recall, for, who was it? SiteGround reached out, and so did InMotion Hosting way back in the day. But this is before these roles existed. And they didn't quite know. So that's right. Mendel kind of had your role.
Yeah.
Way back.
I don't know him, but yes, I've heard.
Yeah, he was great. We were good friends. And I remember I kind of wanted that type of role, and I tried to pitch it. And I talked to 2 different hosting companies, but this was early days, 13, 14, 15. And they didn't know, those smaller hosts didn't know how to retain the ROI, how to see the ROI on that. And they couldn't really afford to give me the income I needed, from a perspective of living in LA and just to really be work, quote unquote, Thursday through Sunday, travel, WordCamp, go home, and then not have me do support. I'm like, I didn't want to do support. I wanted to be, community evangelist and product evangelist and product marketing. Same thing. It's ironic that, that's what you're doing now.
Yeah. The reality is that ROI for it is difficult to track.
Of course.
It's not there, but it's difficult to put into numbers that, easily translate for, folks in the money parts of the company.
Right.
And so I totally understand that. I am very thankful that we have this team and that we're able to go out and evangelize the products and stuff. But there's a lot of value to be had, besides just the monetary value, in being in the community and getting that feedback directly from folks and bringing it back to the company to say, here's where we can get better with, this, that, and the other thing. We, at GoDaddy, we're global sponsors for, WordCamps around the world. And so we go to a lot of WordCamps between, the small team that we have. Right. We go to a lot of WordCamps in the US, Europe, and Asia. The rest of my team just got back from WordCamp Asia.
Right.
And we get a lot of really, really great feedback from those events from people about how, what we're doing well and what we could be doing better. And that's all very valuable.
Right. Yeah. And to have Adam Warner on managing that go-between, I think is huge. I mean, he gets it, obviously.
Yep.
He came from that space in a different company before he went to GoDaddy. I remember, I forgot who he worked with. He worked for SiteLock. And actually they tried to woo me to some extent. At one point I talked to them about it for a bit. And again, budgets change, things happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did SiteLock talk to me about same kind of concept. And then SiteLock changed and he left, and and it's a tight community in one way to look at it.
Sure.
So I'm curious real quick, before GoDaddy, obviously you were at the agency. Before the agency, what were you doing? Like, what was your first kind of gig, I guess?
Yeah, that was it. Before the agency, I was in school. So
that's it. So you just jumped right into, what did you study from a school perspective?
I studied digital media, which was mostly on the graphic design side of things. I even had some like 2D and 3D animation classes as part of that, but not a lot of web. It was still kind of early days web stuff. I mean, this is building in tables and all of that stuff.
Iframes.
almost pre-CMS to some degree. So
flat sites. I did Dreamweaver, all that stuff.
Yep, exactly.
My favorite was, what was the company called? It was Web Net Objects Fusion. That's what it's called. It wasn't Web Fusion, but it was Net Object. It was kind of a drag and drop before drag and drop was around. And it would do all this stuff on the back end. It was really, really slow, cumbersome, I mean, it had potential, obviously, but it was ahead of its time, and it was dog slow.
Yeah.
Dog slow.
Yeah, I did some design stuff and then was like, well, I don't know how to show my design stuff to anybody unless I learn how to put stuff on the web.
Right.
And so that kind of got my foot in the door on building for the web, developing some stuff, and then I got hired by the agency here in town and worked there for over 10 years.
That's amazing. I mean, in our industry, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time, and it's a lot of different hats, a lot of different things I got to learn along the way. So I'm thankful for that experience as well. But yeah, started out in design and then sort of started to pile things on top of that as we needed it for our small agency, development, content writing, social strategy, all of that stuff.
And you never thought to go out on your own, hang your own shingle?
No, I was, again, small agency. I was near the top of the org chart there, and so I felt comfortable where I was at the time. I've done some freelance stuff on my own, but no real interest in starting my own agency.
Being responsible for all the things and all the things. It's a lot. Yeah, I know. I've been down that road. I'm down that road now.
Right.
So, and that leads me to the next question for you, because this is one of my reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast. So people who know me, as you do, I have a bunch of side interests. I mean, I am an ideation savant. I call myself that all the time. And you have a whole bunch of things going on as well, based on my research on you as well. And we both started something about the same time, completely different things. I started Silly Little Goals for accountability, just something for fun. You started the WP.world.
Yep.
So I'm curious, what made you do this one? Like, where did that idea come from, and why?
Yeah. And so a lot of, in case people don't know what the WP world is,
Please.
the WP world is a essentially a directory of WordPress folks, where there's a map and you can see where people are and see if, who's in your area, in your local area, and who's, elsewhere around the world. And it's starting to become a little bit more than that. My hope is for it to be generally a resource for the WordPress community, both in terms of people connecting with each other, but also people connecting with camps, people connecting with other WordPress businesses and that kind of thing. It got started because I really wanted to, again, with the self-taught, all the things I kind of self-taught while I was at the agency. One of the things I wanted to learn a couple of years ago was just how to use the Google Maps API, how to get pins on a map, and then kind of how to power that with a database. And so some combination of WordPress and Google Maps stuff I was just tinkering with, and I would really just wanted to learn it. Then I shelved it for a little bit, and then we had some hurricanes come through down here in Florida. And there are lots of WordPress folks here in Florida, and I really wanted to be able to check in with them, before and after hurricanes, see if they needed anything, see if they were okay afterwards, and that sort of thing. And so I sort of started to add a few of those folks to that WordPress database that wasn't public or anything, just so I knew where some people were and I could check in with them, add their Twitter handles and stuff, so I knew how to reach out. And then I thought, why keep this to myself and have just this handful of people in Florida? There are other people that I would want to check in with that aren't in Florida, and I'm sure there are other people that everyone wants to check in with from time to time, or even find out who lives in their area and stuff. And so I used that design background that I started with and prettied it up a little bit so that it could be something I'd be proud to launch publicly. And I put it out there, just hoping that, some folks would sign up. And I reached out to some of my friends in Florida and said, hey, will you sign up for this? This is kind of the reason why I started it. But also, tell your friends, see if we can add some people to the site and, just get a sense of the community. My hope is that now, being kind of more of a resource, that people will meet up in person now that we've, things have started to open back up and we can meet in person again. This, really started towards the end of lockdowns and stuff. So now that, people are able to meet with each other again, my hope is that they'll use the site to find each other. And I've had some stories already of people that have said, I didn't know this person lived 10 minutes away from me, but now that I do, we've met up, once every couple of weeks at a coffee shop. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm on it, obviously. And by the way, the site does look really good.
Thank you.
It's definitely, you can tell. I didn't know that you had a background in design. Now it totally makes 100% sense.
Yeah, I've iterated over time. It started a little simpler to begin with, just because I wanted to get something out there and get people looking at it, and then worked on it a bit over time to get it to look like what it does now. But my hope is that it becomes a resource for people to see, oh, there are actually a dozen folks in my area. I should start a meetup here where there isn't one, and kind of grow really more in-person type connections with people. That's my hope. I mean, again, the online community is huge and great, and I owe a lot of being part of the community to being in it online over the last few years. But I really want to facilitate having more in-person connections with people, and so I'm hoping that the site and its, geographic abilities will help get people to meet up in person some more.
Yeah. And GoDaddy doesn't mind that you have this going on the side?
Nope. GoDaddy is all pro experimentation and side projects and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, they're all for it. Everyone that I've talked to is excited that it exists and is happy to, back me on that. It's not a GoDaddy project. It's my own project, but they're very excited for folks to, keep their skills sharp and stuff too. I mean, there's so many benefits to having side projects. I don't have to tell you, but you get to kind of keep your skills sharp that way too. My field marketing doesn't require a whole lot of design and development, but I want to be, I still want to be part of what's going on in the design and development world within WordPress as well. And so that helps me kind of keep those skills sharp while I'm doing my field marketing thing.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I remember I spoke to GoDaddy about, I guess, after WordCamp US in San Diego. Mm-hmm. Again, it just randomly, these things pop up. And I'm open to conversations with anybody about anything. But, I've been running my agency now for 7.5 years, and I've been pretty public about it. I'm open to something different and new to some extent. I've had some issues with burnout, but I talked to GoDaddy, I guess, 1.5 years ago. So yeah, WordCamp San Diego, about joining the team in the capacity of, was it the domains reselling business aspect?
Okay.
Didn't work out. It's fine. But, but the same token, my concern was, well, can I do something on the side? Because obviously I'm never going to end that, to my wife's dismay.
Yeah.
But so, and hear that from multiple people. I mean, I knew the answer, but to know that it's refreshing that companies are okay with it, because some companies aren't.
Yeah, there are a few that I won't name that I've heard are not in, not pro side project, but for the most part, I would say the ones that I've chatted with are pretty open to people having their own side projects and their own side work, and I don't see why not. I understand maybe some of the reasons why the ones who
I'll mention
don't encourage that.
Like Automatic doesn't encourage. Here's the thing. Automatic has a rule, from my experience and my knowledge. I mean, I know a lot of automaticians, and I've talked to Matt. Never talked to him about this, but Automatic doesn't want you to use your position at Automatic to kind of raise your value in a sense from that perspective, and you should be making enough money that you don't have to have a side hustle. There's that. Now you can, and so you can, from what I've heard, do web development work, just not for money. Like if you want to donate and volunteer for something, sure, your own thing, but it can't be kind of a competition with Automatic's basic services,
Right.
So
yeah, I get that. If your side project directly competes with the services offered by the company that you work for, I understand. Yeah, I understand that aspect of it. But raising your own personal brand, your own, capital value in the community is just a benefit to the company as well.
If you want to build a site to sell T-shirts or do photography, or paint or whatever it may be, that's totally separate.
Sure.
Or to help a nonprofit. There's a website, there's a company, a dog rescue group, and their site's really bad. It's where we got our dog. And I look at the site all the time, and it just drives me crazy. It is by far one of the worst sites ever. But to redo it will take, time and some just time or money, mine, or my team, and because they don't have any money. This I get, and but I really want to redo the site. It's not mobile friendly. It's a terrible site. I don't want to say who it is at the moment. But I really want to do it. But it's one of those. It's at the moment, it's just more of a, this is going to be funny and cheesy. It's a pet project. Sorry.
Nah, nice.
Thank you.
Done.
Dad joke. Or puns. Anyway, I want to take up I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I have one more main question for you. Well, actually, two main questions. One would be, you wrote an article recently on your blog about, what was the title? It was the the problem with WordPress, or the WordPress versus the world ish, or I mean, I can't remember.
Yeah, the WordPress versus problem. I just hit publish on that yesterday, I think.
Right.
So
As of this recording, it was yesterday. But yes, I liked it. Have you gotten any blowback? I'm curious. And I'll link to it in the show notes.
I have not. I put it out fairly late in the evening. I think some people have seen it. Some people are still waiting for the algorithm to push it to their feed. I
mean, it's very light in the sense of the WP drama hashtag, and I don't usually dive into any of that on the podcast, as you know. I'm just curious, though. It's an interesting take on, people can go read it to kind of get the full gist. Yeah,
I appreciate that. The gist of the article is just that we've started to fall into a little bit of an us versus them mentality in a number of different ways. And I go through a few of the different scenarios in the article. My goal in the article was to try and not to call out anyone specifically, but to encourage the community to try to come back together and unify and say, we're allowed to disagree, but we're all kind of on the same team. This is really not a new concept, to be honest with you. But I felt like I needed to sort of say, hey, this is what I see going on. I've only been really deep into the community the last few years, and I know that there's some people that have been in this community for decades, and like you, and I know that you've seen, the glory days, and the fact that there were a glory days and that it's not now means that we maybe have a little bit of work to do to kind of shift back. And so there was really kind of a call for us to say, all right, I know we have our disagreements. Let's see how we can make sure that we work together to the benefit of the people building sites, the people using these sites, and do it civilly and peacefully. And
right. I agree. Yeah.
That was basically it. Was just, hey, I've been kind of sitting back and watching things happen and trying not to be overly involved in any one scenario, but here's kind of what I see. Can we maybe wrangle that back in?
Or I'll put you on the spot then. So real quick, are you team block editor Gutenberg or not? No, I'm kidding. You don't need to answer that.
We'll see. And that's one of the scenarios that I went over. And the reality is that I'm team all of them because they have different use cases.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There are ones that I prefer over others because of my skill set and because of who I'm doing work for, but that doesn't mean that any of the other ones are
bad.
Not a good choice for a different situation.
Right. So, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And that's where I stand. I like what I like, and that doesn't mean that any of the other ones are a bad choice for other people for other circumstances.
Right. I agree. I mean, my agency is a beaver builder shop. It's what we know. We're fast at it, and our clients don't care.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. We can crank out what we need based on the design and the wireframes. We go through the process. And at the end of the day, clients from my world at the moment, they just want what they want the site within budget, within time frame. They're not really all that concerned about the tech.
I do think there's room for all of them. And I think that was kind of where I was going with it there, is that Gutenberg and the block editor doesn't need to replace something else. And the page builders don't need to replace the block editor. They're different tools, and that's one of the strengths of WordPress. And
I will say,
always had options. And
the page builder versus the Gutenberg block editor, I think the benefit of all of it is leaps and bounds better than tiny MCE editor.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get that benefit, plain and simple. I mean, that was an old tech that had to evolve, and there was no great way to do it per se. So anyway. All right, last question for you. As you know, this one's coming. 3 tools. What are the 3 tools that you use on a daily basis, kind of thing? Your favorite tools. People always want to know those kind of things.
Yeah, the number one probably tool that I can point to that I use on a daily basis at this point is Chatgpt.
Oh, interesting.
It actually has helped me build a lot of the WP world as quickly as I've been able to build up.
Fascinating.
If you've been following along with the site, you'll see that I basically have some new stuff coming every week.
Yeah.
I've been inspired to keep building it, but I'm not a professional developer. Right. I'm a designer who added development to their skill set because they needed to. So a lot of times I'll either write some code and have ChatGPT kind of clean it up and look through it and make sure looks good, or I'll say, hey, I need a snippet that does this, and I'll have it generate it, and then I'll walk back through and make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. I don't advocate for anyone to take whatever's coming out of Chatgpt directly and dump it into, especially a code base, but
Right.
even content, go through it, make sure it says what it's supposed to say. But that's tool number one, which has replaced what my previous tool number one, which is just 1Password. I think everyone,
Yeah.
at any time that I'm dealing with, a friend, family who doesn't have a password manager and has to figure out what their password was for something, I lose my mind.
I am losing my mind with my wife. This is both of our faults. So my wife uses the silliest passwords, or she puts them in her notebook and they're just plain text, like not a notebook,
Yep.
like a notepad on the
Notepad on your phone.
On her
Yep.
phone. So, but the drawback is, for years she's been asking, and I always tell her to use a lot stronger passwords, this and that. But of course, so now I do actually happen to have a family pack for 1Password. I just need to set them up.
Me
on
too.
It.
And I've tried, and I still can't get the buy-in. So
I need it. I think my wife would do it. It's just up to me to do it. So maybe that's my goal before this episode launches. So,
there you go. I'll keep pressing on people to have a password manager until everyone has one. Doesn't have to be 1Password, but I like 1Password. So. And then the other one that I use very often is called RocketAPP. It's a real small app. I think it might only be for Macs, unfortunately, but it lets you real quick add emojis and stuff within your writing. You do kind of the Slack syntax where you hit colon and then start typing an emoji, and it basically unlocks that for everywhere else on your machine. So
interesting.
Anytime I need to grab an emoji for a tweet or a iMessage or whatever, RocketAPP jumps in and helps me out there. So
all right, cool, very cool. I'll check that one out. It's cool. All right, last one. Where can people find you if they want to reach out, touch base, follow for the ride?
Yeah, best place to find what I'm doing in WordPress is the wp.world. That's the site I've been building. If you're not already on there, please go add yourself. It doesn't cost anything, and you can see who lives around you and have access to all the tools and resources and stuff that are being built there. Otherwise, mostly on X, formerly Twitter, just Marcus D. Burnette there. So
spell your last name so people have it.
Yeah, it's Burnette.
There you go. Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Always cool seeing you on the Zoom here. And of course, we're only using the audio. But other than that, thanks. We'll see. I guess, where are you going to be next? Going to any conferences?
Next one I think might be Buffalo, and then WordCamp Europe in June.
In June. I'm going to try to make that since Italy, and I might bring my wife. But I'm also in the midst of training, so we'll see how that goes for my running.
Yep, exactly.
Work, and I'll be off, so I have a race in May, June. Actually, June might be a rest month. It might be okay.
Yeah,
and
thank you for having me on. I told you this already, but being on this is a bucket list item for me because I've been listening to the show for so many years.
That is hilarious. When you told me that, I thought that was hilarious because I'm like, I didn't realize I was a bucket list type of thing. But
you thought awesome. I was joking, but I actually wasn't joking.
For those who are listening still at this point, yeah, Marcus said, "Don't take this away from me. It's a bucket list." It's awesome. I was so flattered, and I still am. I like having you on. It was great. So
thank you.
Thanks so much. Again, thanks, Marcus, for being on the podcast. I'm happy as heck that I made this bucket list thing for you come true. Yeah, it's awesome. Looking forward to seeing you in the near future somewhere around the world of WordPress. So there you go. All right, moving on. Segment 3, Tip and Tool of the Week. I'm going to give Marcus one more shout out. The WP.world is this week's segment 3, Tip and Tool of the Week. So it's over at the WP.world. If you're not in there, sign up. Participate, be part of the community, and great things will come of it. I promise. So no promises, no guarantees. All right, that's it for this week. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use that speak pipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, you can become a Patreon, kitchensinkwp.com/Patreon. Also a way to buy me a coffee. I like my caffeine on the homepage there. You can sponsor the show. There's a form on the website for that, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right, bye-bye.